Hello, it's Alan Shaw back from the FanPub. Welcome.
Good to be back, and this is going to be an exciting episode. Thankfully, I think our technical issues are behind us now, as we now roll into this week's. It's getting closer, isn't it? We're only a few weeks
away. Football is nearly here. The camps are beginning. All the news is coming out.
It's so much more exciting, I must be honest. I mean, for all the weeks of you looking at things and thinking about stuff, it still never goes away. Even as you get closer to the drafts, I'm still scheming and plotting. We were just discussing that off air, what we want to do and how we want to go about it. We never agree with anything really.
I've told Sean he's got a load of bus on his list already.
List at all. It's a good sign. It's a good sign.
Well, thanks for clicking on the video. We'll get straight into it. First one is a bit of news on the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh yeah.
Obviously they drafted Rashard Penny in the first round.
Yep.
Then tried to make up that somebody had tried to trade for him off them, even though they picked him so high.
Right.
And Bob Condatta of the Seattle Times expects Chris Carson to start as RB1 in camp. What do you read into this?
Well, I think that's normal. I mean, Chris Carson is the player that's been there slightly longer than Penny. Penny's got to earn the role. Every coach knows that you just don't hand someone the role because they get lazy. I wouldn't expect anything less.
So would it worry you if you were a Rashard Penny owner?
Not at this stage, no. I mean, first round picks rarely not get used. I mean, unless they're an absolute bust. So when was the first time a running back wasn't used to start the year off after being picked in the first? I mean, that's blimmin' rare, actually. I can't think of one off the top of my head unless it was through injury. So, no, Rashard Penny will get plenty of opportunity in that, and they're going to need him, let's be honest. I mean, he's going to be an every down back there because they're going to be throwing a lot. His skill set is perfect for it.
Are you not worried at all about the...
Not in the slightest at this stage. I'm sure Carson... I like Carson, don't get me wrong. I think as a late round pick, I think Carson's a very good fantasy prospect, exactly for these reasons.
Is there any chance he wins a job or not?
Oh, there's always a chance. Hart can win.
They do like him a lot, don't they?
Yeah, I mean... there's many backfields out there still muddied. I mean, we could talk about Denver in the same light, and I'm sure we will. But I'm not worried about that situation either. I mean, you've got to believe in certain things, and they're going to work themselves out. I'm sure Penny will get the job. It may take, a few games into the year. I doubt it. I think he gets the job straight away. But let's see how it plays out actually in camp, and then you'll get a great steer before the season kicks off. But at this stage, I'm not in the slightest bit worried about it. No.
Okay.
Not at all. I mean, I think the only question is volume and how much work based on how difficult that line's going to be.
Okay, the sensational news of the week was obviously regarding Josh Gordon.
Yes.
Apparently he's taking time off to deal with mental issues because I don't know if it's getting too much for him. But you got Hard Knocks. Yeah, the TV cameras are going to be with them soon. Does that play into it at all? What are your feelings on drafting Josh Gordon?
He worries me. I think there is the upside. I mean, we all know what the upside is of Josh Gordon. The potential is he's a steal, potentially. And maybe this news as well will mean his ADP falls more, so that the steal value gets higher as the risk gets less. But there is a huge problem here. I mean, his best years are clearly behind him. We haven't seen anything like that since. We know what the issues are off the field. There's a lot of them, and now you add in the mental health issues. That doesn't surprise me. This guy comes from a very difficult area in America where he has definitely had a tough upbringing, and I'm not using that as a defence or a criticism, and that's just a way of life over there. He's struggled. He's struggled to adapt in the NFL. He's struggled to adapt in his life. Basically, he's had a lot of off-field problems, and that's now spilling over into this season. I think the pressure of cameras coming and various other issues are weighing very heavy on him. I mean, one more mistake and he's pretty much, his career's over. And I don't think he's made any mistakes. I just think
it's almost like you've got a dual threat now when you obviously got if things do get too much, he goes to drink or drugs.
Yeah.
Plus you've got, if he just gets too much for him mentally, you can lose him for that.
I've got to be honest and say this. Look, I mean, from my perspective, and please take that with a pinch of salt, I'm not sure what Al's going to say, but from my perspective, fancy-wise, I wouldn't touch the guy with a barge pole because I am not risking that higher pick on a player as it stands in his ADP, and we can have a look at that in a minute. I'm sure Al will have the data. I can't risk that kind of problem. I want a player that's going to give me every game value unless he gets injured, at which point that's fair enough. I couldn't predict it. But
the good news is that, Dorsey came out and says he absolutely expects Josh Gordon to play a part this year. Well, to play this year.
Yep.
But then straight after saying that, he said he'd consider taking Des Bryant.
I mean,
that sort of.
that's not going to help the
That's
guys.
saying one
That's
thing.
not going to help the guys' issues, is it?
Well, they've actually lost one of their other wide receivers out for the year as well. I forget his name actually. He's one of the Ricardo Lewis. That's it.
Yeah, the Browns are a really.
So he's out for the year. So
the Browns are in a right mess. I mean, every time they have a quarterback I trust,
they've got a new quarterback as well.
They get rid of them. They keep changing offensive, coordinators. Coaches are changing. Everything keeps moving around.
They've got two new running backs, Carlos Hyde and Nick Chubb.
It worries me. I'm sure that they are definitely, because the back office stuff, we've talked about this before, really seems to be taking the team in the right direction, but just everything else seems to be dragging them back, and I think these are issues of the past. So for me, I'm not touching Josh Gordon. How do you feel about him?
No, he's too risky for me. I can't do it.
I know there's plenty of people.
I want to see him have another. But if he has a big, I want him to do well. I mean, if fair play. If you pick him, it's a gambler's pick, and it may pay off. But
yeah,
I just don't like it.
He's got upside. I mean, there's no doubt.
Yeah, of course, it's a gambler's pick.
He's got first round upside.
If he comes in and plays all year and gets back to his best, then you've absolutely nailed it. But there's a fair chance, I think, that you're going to be worried all year, and he's not going to return what you need him to.
If he starts poor, and you're only looking at.
So what round would he have to? What number ADP would he have to drop to for you to be interested?
I think he's got to fall in the large league into round sort of 6 or 7 for me to be remotely interested.
So what pick number?
It's somewhere in the range of about 84 to 100 in that range. I think is probably fair for ADP. Then there's a shot maybe there if you've depending on how you've drafted. I might give him a go. But
he's not going to fall that well, though, is he?
No,
take a chance,
and that's the problem, because his reputation is extremely high, and he's a name that polarises people, isn't he? I mean, he's Marmite, isn't he? You either love him or you hate him.
He's going 46 at the moment.
It's just too high.
But I'm guessing that hasn't properly been updated.
No, I mean
he's as low as 116 on.
Yeah, he'll fall.
Board.
Definitely fall. I'm not sure how much, and it will depend on what happens. I mean, we're not far from camp, so he can't fall massively.
What Browns player would you be happy drafting? Because they're an improving team, aren't they? But there's a lot of new pieces. What?
I mean, you might take a piece of the backfield if you're being honest. You might.
Which one?
I'd probably try Chubb if I'm being honest. I'd have a go at the rookie.
He's got to get past Hyde and.
I know that's my issue. I mean, none of the pieces massively excite me. If I'm honest, now I kind of struggle, because you look at all the obvious data fantasy wise, and you look at high octane offenses and the difference between who wins your fantasy championships. Well, it's often players from high octane offenses. It's not.
Yeah, but you
can get bargains.
Sometimes you have to draft these other pieces.
Well, if
someone will draft them all, probably.
If they fall into the right, I mean, Duke Johnson has a value because the kind of
more so in PPR.
Probably in PPR, but he's got a value. He proved what he can do in that format.
But I think Carlos Hyde's good in that format.
Well, I can't dispute what you've said before about Carlos Hyde. I mean, he is the veteran. The other guy's got to beat him out. Carlos Hyde is definitely a 3-down back. He's proved that.
He's top 10 running back last year.
He came in and proved last year he still had it. So it's pretty difficult to argue against your rationale, and Carlos Hyde may offer you the best value in the draft for the Browns players.
And by the way,
then he might not
on the news
much.
that the Browns might interest in. Des Bryant came out and said, "I only want to play for a contender."
Yeah, that's fair. Can't argue. I
don't know if that's directly at the Browns or
that's
maybe thinks the Browns are a contender. Who knows?
Yeah, well, that's a fair comment, fair shout.
Okay, well, we talked about Carlos Hyde. Now let's go on to another sort of murky backfield situation.
Oh, God.
We're talking about the Houston Texans, Donta Foreman.
Yeah.
And, we got Lamar Miller.
This is really difficult.
Alfred Blue.
Yeah, this is so difficult. This is another one. I mean, look, Lamar Miller...
Well, the news is that...
has value.
Foreman begins camp on the PUP list, so...
Well,
that gives Miller a bit of a...
Well, that's different. If that happens, I hadn't seen that, so that's news to me. I hadn't caught that one. If that happens, then clearly
it has happened.
It's Miller's backfield, because he's rode back in from his Achilles injury is looking less and less likely.
But if you're drafting Miller, because this is a decision we've all got to think about when we're drafting.
If you take Miller, you don't take a handcuff.
A lot of people don't like Lamar Miller, and for he had a pretty... poor finish to the season, to put it politely.
Look, if it's this situation, if you're going to take one, then you go with Lamar Miller. You're going to get him at a good value. His ADP we'll have a look at in a minute. That'll be good to see. I think that's good value because
He's 52 overall.
It's great value. I mean, we just talked about Josh Gordon, Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller, that's good value down there, isn't it?
Yeah, so you can probably put him at 1.
So that's fourth, fifth round, depending on draft format. End of fourth.
I suppose you're going around Dion Lewis.
It's pretty good
so
value.
Who would you draft? And tell me why. Dion Lewis, Mark Ingram, Lamar Miller. They're all within 3 picks.
If I had to take one, and I already had a couple of running backs, I would take Mark Ingram because I know that if I've got 2 running backs that are performing, that I believe will perform well and start well, and I've got Ingram coming in after week 4, I've gained myself at least half a fantasy season, a third running back. That's going to give me a big edge.
So that tells you what he thinks of Miller. He'd rather have a player that's missing 4 weeks ahead
of him. Then I would take Miller because Miller's going to be playing every single week. And there's no one else to touch that kind of... Yeah, I'd take Ingram because it's the highest octane offense out of the 2. And he is going to be very, very good in the team if you've already got running backs. If you don't have any running backs, or only have one, Miller's the obvious
contender. You could have an Ingram when you're 0-4 because your running backs, you've got no running backs playing the first
this is
4
assuming
weeks.
You've already got a couple.
Yeah.
I mean, if you already
it's a good point. It's a good point.
If you already have, then it's worth it. If you don't, Miller all day long. Because,
I'm looking forward to 0-4 with Ingram sat on the bench. I'm looking forward to seeing you with
thanks. It. I'm not saying for 1 minute, don't get me wrong. I mean, look, this is a really good situation because I've never hugely been a Miller fan, as anybody knows, but this is a different situation now that the other guy's on a PUP and that's looking more and more unlikely to come back for the Achilles. And I know I've got him in one dynasty team, Jonty Foreman's a gamble pick, and it's looking like that's not going to turn out. That's life. That's fantasy. Miller looks like a good pick, and I think he's
got plenty of time though, isn't he?
Yes, but I think his ADP, Miller's can only climb a little here. To be honest with you,
I think it will with that news because that is big news, really.
It is. They're a good offense, and that means Miller has a value now that is kind of a targetable player that would normally be a targetable player that play. I mean, to be honest, what this probably does is damage people who've got the wide receiver 0 strategy because Miller's value will climb, and other people now see the value of taking Miller.
And what round would you be targeting Alfred Blue then?
I wouldn't.
Hey?
I wouldn't be taking any of the. I wouldn't take Alfred Blue even.
If somebody said either you die or you take Alfred Blue, which one would you? It's nice knowing you, Sean. Right? Okay. We'll move on.
It's that sad, isn't it? Sorry, Alfred, if you are upset about the news, send us in a T-shirt and we'll auction it off for you.
Yeah, he'd probably drop it to be
the highest bidder.
The good news for the Texans, though, and this isn't really fantasy related, but it is kind of if you're drafting their defense. Watt and Clowney are both avoided the PPP list, and so was Deshaun Watson, which is very good news.
Yeah, it was good news for Watson. Yeah, I'm very excited for his chances this year, Watson. I think the only thing about him that I worry about, I think he's going to be excellent for this year. He's going to do amazing things. He proved that in the sample size, what he's capable of, and I think their schedule's kind. The only risk is he has had these 2 major injuries, one in college, one in the NFL. And he plays that way, so that you'll always have your heart in your mouth every time the guy runs with the ball. But the upside is just through the roof, isn't it? I mean, it's exciting.
You can potentially see why, a difference maker in fantasy.
You can see why people are naturally putting him quite high on their list.
So I get it. Sean's rankings here.
My ranking tells you everything you need to know about where I put him on that list.
QB1, Deshaun Watson, above Aaron Rodgers.
I've got him up on my list. I was calling it out on 1. Now, why have I got him there? Well, look, we talked last week about whether a player might make the top 12 rankings, okay? I'm going to just say it now that Deshaun Watson will make my top 12 rankings this year. I will save where for once we hit that point.
Once we do the video.
Those videos. Well, he's on that list for a reason, and it's worth mentioning. Look, if he comes back, is he capable of 4,000 passing yards? I think that's very possible in an offense that, quite frankly, has a very good schedule. They have some great pieces. Look at their wide receivers. They look really good as a group with him in tow. Miller, I can take Miller or not like him. But this year, if he's the only one there, I kind of like him. How can I refuse, to not like him?
Alfred Blue will appear at some stage.
Of course, he always does. But Deshaun Watson, 4,000 yards. How many rushing yards? I mean, he's got to be good for 600. He's got to be.
Yeah. Although, will they lessen that with the injury?
No, he said he wants to play this.
I know he said that, but do they?
No,
he's not calling the plays.
He can control it. The quarterback will decide when to go. If he thinks there's a gap, he'll take it. So he's that kind of player, and this is what I think will happen. He gets 600 yards rushing. He's got 4,000 yards receiving. passing, and then you factor in how many touchdowns that could be. That's massive. So the upside for fantasy is huge, and it could leave some quarterbacks in the dust. So that difference could be huge. But the problem is you're going to pay a high premium for a Rodgers.
Yeah, I know you've been talking him up.
Well, I mean, it's only natural. He's good. And let's be honest, in our leagues, I'm not letting anything out of the bag here. How many people like him in our league? A lot.
Yeah, nearly everyone.
No surprises.
No
surprise.
I mean, he's got Sean Watson, who's a class of.
Yeah.
He's got DeAndre Hopkins, at wide receiver, and Will Fuller, and Kiki Kuti is one of our.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned him.
One of our rookies to watch.
I do think he has a chance to shine this
He's
year.
been impressing coaches, so he's one. He's one to look at.
They've got a great schedule for the quarterback and the wide receivers. I really like the schedule for them, and everything looks to. I mean, it can all go wrong, but it all looks, at this stage, as far as you can analyse it, looks good.
And in the least surprising news of the week, Tyler Eifert's to begin the year on the PUP list with his back.
Not surprised. As we said sneakily, we were talking about this off camera. We've talked about it before. We both said, if in doubt, take Croft. It's been our go-to. It's been our go-to sneaky move for tight ends.
Tell you what, Croft could be a very, very sneaky late end tight end.
I mean, I've got Croft in your Dynasty League, I think. Croft is sitting there, who looked like he had very little value as this season started.
Well, is he 6'6"? He's young.
Yeah, he's proved
everything. He can catch touchdowns.
He's a very, very sneaky tight end. So if you are drafting and you're at that, you're looking for an auction late round that will quick pick up for $1 or $2.
In a larger league, you wouldn't want him in a 10-team league.
No, you've got other players you can choose.
There's better options.
You've got the pick of the crop, but we always focus on the large because that makes it easier in the smaller ones. You can kind of target even more, get more value, if that makes sense.
Okay, Antonio Gates is actively negotiating with the Chargers. No real shot there.
No, I mean he's
been dragging on a few weeks, this, hasn't it?
It hasn't finalised itself. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, do they really need him? I mean,
they do because they lost Hunter Henry.
But,
can you name their other tight end?
No,
exactly.
I don't want to talk about the other tight ends. I'm not interested. But I mean, he has lost everything. He's lost a step. He's not quite the same. But I guess all they need him for is the red zone. So
he does get open though, doesn't he?
Anybody knows how to find the end zone, and that's sneaky value there. Really, in standard, he's great value, isn't he? If you can get Antonio Gates late, that's a good tight end to have in the pack 2 tight ends.
Or any league that gives bonuses for touchdowns over yards. That's where he excels, I'd say.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, if he gets signed, he's going to be the red zone threat there.
Yeah.
One of them.
He's not much good.
And they spread the ball around really well. I was looking at that, actually. Was it this morning or yesterday? I was looking at how the Chargers spread the ball around to their players. And you look at what they did with the ball, that's all the Charger players that were involved in, and you have to think, it's a very good spread, 20% for a wide receiver, 15% for the tight end overall.
Well, Keenan Allen is the wide receiver one, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, but he didn't get more than 21% of the share of the targets.
He got good numbers, though, didn't he?
He did really well with them, very efficient with them, but his big knock, of course, is injury, and that's the question you'll face on draft day.
Well, and you'll be facing it very early, because he's ranked in the top 16 now, isn't he?
It's a big, big issue for me. This is a good one to talk about.
He is number 16.
Do you like? I mean, being honest, could you comfortably, if you thought all your other?
Would you take him above AJ Green? Because that's where he's going.
No, I wouldn't. No, I'd take AJ Green over him. Would you?
Would you take him above Devontae Adams?
No, I wouldn't. Devontae Adams clearly above them, both of them.
Devontae Freeman?
No, I wouldn't take him over him.
Jordan Howard?
No, I wouldn't take him over him.
So it's a no from you.
It's a big no from me. No, would you?
No, I wouldn't take him that high.
I mean,
I don't mind him as a player, but that's...
Would you fear the risk of injury? Would be the bit that scares you off from a fantasy perspective? I know you can't always be scared off. You have to.
I'm not scared about the injury. Not at all.
I personally just don't like the player. He did very well with his targets.
When you're drafting, I think you're looking for a player who's going to exceed his position, his numbers. So last year, if you picked him last year, you'd have been happy because you got maybe that bottom end of the first round numbers.
Yeah.
Now, if you drafted him, that's probably... Can he get higher than that? I mean, I don't think he can.
I mean, this is the problem. So if he's first
you're on a no-win. You're on a no-win decision here. You can't win from it unless he's not going to explode. I don't.
Well, the question would be this. I mean, this would be a great one to talk about. We're just using standard. We're not talking PPR here, just to keep the clarity. So if I said to you, what would you estimate if he stayed healthy for 16 games? What would you estimate his fantasy points total would be? Would you say a fair ceiling is 160 to 180?
Yeah.
And that's still lower than where he's going. I mean, that's a problem, isn't it? I mean, if he's going in the first round in a large league, which he is at 16...
I mean, he might well deliver the points that you need, but that's all he can do. You're
I
looking for
I
players
think-
to exceed it.
I think I agree with you on that analysis. Actually, I think, and that sounds rare, doesn't it? But I do agree with you because I think you're spot on. Because I would say the maximum I could see is 200, and that's a stretch because that means he's got to get 10 touchdowns. He's got to. He's got to.
He's
get
not going to
them.
get to in standard. He's not going to get 200 in
And that's my
PPR.
problem.
Obviously,
Well,
he
PPR he
can.
can.
Different
But
kettle
in
of fish.
standard, he can't do it, or at least I don't think he can get close to it. So I think he's at least 20 off in standard from his position, and I think he could be 40 away.
What about the other?
That gives me a problem.
What about the other Chargers options then? So Mike Williams, who missed most of last year.
I'm not a fan at this stage. Haven't seen enough to really be motivated.
Terrell
to
Williams
pick him.
had a poor year really.
I was expecting more from Terrell Williams last year. There's certainly an upside because we just discussed the loss of the tight ends, so clearly there could be more targets to go around. Everybody benefits, even Keenan Allen benefits, Terrell Williams benefits, but last year really put me off him. I thought he was sneaky good value last year. I never quite got any shares of him.
Is Benjamin still there as well? I don't know if he is.
I believe he is. Yeah.
So he always
Worry him.
He always pops up for a game or two.
I mean,
doesn't he?
that's the clear worry here, isn't it? I mean, you're talking 16.
So are you excited about any of those? Because a lot of people are tipping the Chargers.
Well, I will say this. I mean, what I'm excited about from the Chargers' point of view is that, I mean, these are the kind of players that can be on championship teams. I'm not saying Keenan Allen because he's going very high, but other players within that list could be, because
a lot of people are massive on the Chargers this year.
well, they've got a good
solid defence.
They've got a good defence. They've got an offence that's not rubbish by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you've got Melvin Gordon in the backfield. I think he's quite exciting for this year. Other people have gone a bit cold on him, but I think he's still ADP is still holding quite well, isn't it? Is he going about 13 on Fantasy Pros?
Who's that? Sorry,
is that Melvin Gordon going about 13?
Yeah, he's going about that.
So
12.
I mean, 12, and that is
just
bang
above
on.
Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably bang on. I've got Melvin Gordon on my list. I can be honest about this at 11. So my list for Melvin is 11
Well, overall,
and I think that's about fair value for him because you're going to have to pay top dollar for a good running back. And I don't mind his situation because it's the Chargers, because they tend to use throw the ball as well as run the ball. He'll have his share of work, and I think he will get his value. I don't think the ceiling's particularly exciting with Melvin Gordon, but I certainly don't think there's a lot of risk.
but he's certainly
Solid.
got an option of doing that.
Yeah,
So,
he has.
I mean, they bought Eckler in last year. He's going to get a bit of work.
Yeah, I mean Rivers
And they bought in a
is
rookie as
very
well.
very good value as a quarterback.
Is he?
I think in the ADP list, I think he's good value. Yeah. Okay. Where would you put him on the list of quarterbacks if you had to put Rivers in? I mean, I've got him 14th on my list personally, but my list is quite obscure. Where do they see him as? What quarterback do they put him at? Because I mean, that's very good value, isn't it? I mean, 14 even on my list is decent. What do the Fantasy Pros say? Now I'm
the
curious.
consensus opinion on him. I'm just looking for him.
Kind of curious to see actually where they place him.
QB 12.
Okay, so we're not far off the value. I'm
So
slightly off,
that's QB 1 in a 12-team league.
which is all right. You don't mind that.
I wouldn't be happy with it.
What would you not be happy about with
Well,
Rivers? You don't think he does enough, or
He's all right, but wouldn't pick him in 12. I'd rather wait.
yeah?
I'd rather take someone later.
Oh, well, I agree.
He's going to be just as good.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that's where I've got him on my list is 14th. I mean, there are other players I think are more exciting that I can get later.
So let's just have a look. You got Andrew Luck at 17.
I'll show you one on my
I'd
list.
rather draft Andrew Luck than him.
I've got one on my list that's 8 that I think is more value, and no one else will pick
Patrick
him inside.
Mahomes.
Nobody will pick him inside that range.
You got him at Drew Brees and Cam Newton.
Yes, I have.
That is bold.
Yeah, well, I'm going all in this year. Here's why, right? So why do I rate Patrick Mahomes so highly? Okay, watch Week 17's film on him playing Denver Broncos. No slouch defense. They didn't rest anybody. Denver Broncos defense. They played the full team in. Now he came in. He made mistakes. There's no doubt about that. But just look at some of the passes. Look at what he showed. Look at the poise. Look at everything that you needed to see. One game sample, granted. He's had the whole of that season to mature, which is what they've done with him, and he's learned under Alex Smith. This is a different quarterback. This is a guy who's got all the throws. What I saw was a guy who can stretch the field, throw down the seam routes, put the ball out in the flat beautifully, can move the ball if he needs to on his feet, savvy, quick. He's going to be exceptional. He's going to surprise a lot of people for this year.
Well, when you look at the...
and he is one that's under my... He's my, not in my top 12 list for obvious reasons, rookie quarterback, but he's a quarterback you're going to get very late. He could be your second. He could surprise you and do a lot more than that. And that's why I like him for this year. I wouldn't pick him 8th. I don't have to. But I would certainly... He's high on my list because I believe in him. Now, Drew Brees is only heading one direction. Now, as much as he's talented, the team is super high octane around him. You can see that the team is moving away from here's the reins, throw the ball as you want. That's not how it's going.
But he spreads it as well, though, doesn't he?
He does. And he doesn't have to do that kind of
a lot
work
to the running backs.
Yeah, it'll be soft and simple passes. Some of those will work out very well for him, but his numbers will keep moving him backwards. You just got to look up the lists and start deciding who you like. I like Mahomes as a second quarterback. I'd like to get him, and I have got him in some dynasty teams. I've been very cagey and picked him up because I think this is where he starts to prove how good he could be.
Okay, certainly interesting. Well, we're talking about luck. He's down at 17 on your list, and I think that is harsh. You've got him below. I mean, I'd take him above Dak Prescott every day of the week.
Well, it's only because he's coming back from a shoulder surgery injury.
Yeah, but this is where you're getting him cheap. This is what I'm saying about.
You are still getting him cheap. I mean, his ADP is low enough where, you know, with a player that I've got that low down on my list, there's going to come a value with him. And I'm talking about, you know, do I need to pick a quarterback early? If I don't, what kind of quarterbacks are going to be out there? He could certainly be out there when I'm coming round to pick. So would I take Andrew Luck? Absolutely.
I mean, I'd probably take some protection and get another quarterback.
Yeah, of course you would. And that's why I say you'd always have two at that point. When you leave it late, you have to have two. You
want to draft people when they're going to be on you think they might have an upward curve. I mean, if he's going to 17, when he plays...
Yeah, he's got all the upside. He's got all the upside of a quarterback one.
Bear in mind...
But he will start the year off. People have to remember what we said about him, and I believe this will prove to be very accurate. I'm convinced he will play from week one. I'm also convinced the first few weeks of him coming back, he's very rusty.
Well, yeah, of course. But he's going to play in pre-season, apparently. So he's not on the PUP list. He's ready to go. He's a top 3 quarterback when he plays.
Yeah, if he plays back
and you could be getting him at, like, QB 17, 18.
Yep.
Surely that is one gamble, you know.
I don't mind.
That is a gamble with a big upside.
No problem taking him as his ADP level is not a problem. He's cheap.
Don't draft him on his own because that is just asking for trouble.
Yeah, you have to make sure you're backing him up with somebody you trust.
You know, draft him.
But there's a lot of depth to the QB list this year, isn't there? There's a lot of depth in that list.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't saying a year ago. I felt we didn't have as much depth. I think things have sort of moved around a bit. We've got some players we can kind of target.
Yeah, and we've got plenty of... I mean, we were talking about a sneaky one earlier when we were talking about Eli Manning.
Yeah, like him.
You know, Beckham's back. When Beckham plays, he averages 17 points, which is really decent for a quarterback.
I mean, I've got Eli Manning
and he's got
highlighted on my list at 25 because that's where I believe he's going to go.
Well, yeah.
And that's basically a throwaway quarterback. You'll get him in small leagues as the last pick. You will get him in the larger leagues probably near the last pick. There's not a lot not to like about that.
I mean, he averages 10 points for the Beckham, so a lot of people are going to be hurting who drafted him last year. But he's now got Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
Added to the 17 points he gets when Beckham plays, because Beckham's a difference maker.
Absolutely, yeah.
You got Ingram, you got Shepard. They're a year older and wiser.
Well,
so there's a lot to like about getting him late, isn't it?
It's really good, quite frankly. I mean, I know that his career is moving. You know, the best years are really, quite frankly, are behind. You know, they are behind him. His best years are definitely not in front of him. But he can have a resurgent year this year. Eli
you saw it the same sort of thing with Carson Palmer when they got David Johnson in.
It made a big difference.
His numbers shot up, didn't they?
It made a big difference because you could throw a dolly ball out into the flat. A little 2-yard ball out in the flat, the guy takes it to the house, adding 80 yards to your stats.
I don't think he'd be taking it if I was throwing it to him. He'd be on the floor.
He might get medicine balled, but he'll be all right.
I don't think they'd be QB spying
there's a lot of value in the quarterbacks, but you've got to be cagey as well because it's knowing when to leave him. If you do leave him, there is only 2 strategies. I mean, we've highlighted it in this video brilliantly today. You either go in early, and that comes with a risk because we all know what happens if you go early with quarterbacks. It means you have to nail everything else around it. So if you take a Rodgers in the 3rd or a Deshaun Watson in the 3rd or 4th, or whatever round you decide to take these players, you're missing out on other valuable pieces to your team, 100%. And that's really difficult to replace. Whereas if you're waiting, you are adding pieces, hopefully, to your squad so that when you take your quarterback, that's just a bonus pick, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of other ones I quite like. They're quite late. Stafford's going, what?
It's disrespected this year.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't lost any of his weapons particularly. He's got a new rookie running back to add to the list.
Yeah, I think Stafford has proved.
He's still got Marvin Jones and Golden Tate.
I like Golladay.
He's got Kenny Golladay.
I think there's a lot of players out there that are not nice. It reminds me a lot. Funny enough, Detroit to me are a little bit like the Chargers. They're not quite as explosive, but they're getting there. It could be very interesting for this
I mean,
year.
they lost Ebron, but that's no big loss, is it?
Yeah, so they
It's
look
not like he was
exciting.
putting up big
And
numbers.
Stafford is a solid, sensible quarterback you can anchor a fantasy championship team round.
I'll tell you what, he's good for 15 to 18 points a week.
And sometimes more.
Yeah.
So
you might have to. You normally get some late though in the fourth quarter comeback.
Well, it's really strange. There are quarterbacks that there's some real value out there, but it's. I hate it when you get it wrong. I mean, I've had it. When you get it wrong and you get those quarterbacks. I did it last year. I got them wrong all the time. Look at how many injuries I had with quarterbacks. Never seen a year with that. But when you get it wrong, I mean, your quarterback's not delivering 15 fantasy points, which is the bare minimum I want. That's terrible.
You're getting injuries when you have to field Jay Cutler.
I mean, the injuries, weren't it? I mean, it was incredible. We had Luck, who didn't even make the season. I had Flacco, got injured before week 1.
Winston,
Winston, he didn't do anything. Mariota, it was terrible. I mean, when you're hitting those kind of quarterbacks, you wish you had other players deep down.
That's why I don't draft any of them kind of quarterbacks.
Well, they're on the list.
You're
welcome to.
They're on the avoid list.
Jameis Winston has kind of put himself out, made himself very cheap later on. What about him? Talk about him for a second. And so, say you're looking for a second, you've already got a good one. Happy to take Jameis as a second? Given his suspension early doors?
Not really.
You'd be worried.
Why would I sit a second QB on my bench for 4 weeks or 3 weeks?
Just a thought. You'd rather have a player that plays.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm looking at week 2 or week 3 and he's still there, and my QB isn't performing, then I might look at him if he's still on the waivers.
And he could be.
Yeah,
he definitely could be. Yeah,
especially in a smaller league.
Yep, good value.
Every
good
chance.
Point. Good point, Al. Okay.
Cameron Meredith avoided the PUP. He's obviously gone from the Chargers to the Saints, and they've also backed that up by saying he's favourite for the wide receiver 2 job. So
it's very good if he does win it. I mean, it's remarkable value if he wins that job.
And we had it mentioned in the comments as well about Meredith being a sneaky player for this year from you guys. So it's always good to hear.
Yeah, and I mean they are raising. And it's fair. It's a fair shout. I mean, they are raising the bar. Those comments will raise the bar and make me look at the player more than once and think, actually, now the guy is potentially number 2 at the Saints. What do I think about it? I definitely think there's some value there because it's.
Because you're not paying any price.
Well, first of all, there's no Ingram for the first few weeks. There's probably going to have to be more throws in those first few weeks, although they will have to try and run the ball between the tackles using Alvin Kamara, I love him to bits. I think he's exciting, but I prefer him more when he hasn't got to take the every down load.
And Meredith is a good player. He was highly thought of before he got injured last year.
He's a good what they call possession receiver. Somebody when he knows the routes well. He gets that little bit of separation, and he's pretty clutch when the ball's anywhere near him in the target zone to catch. There's definitely merit there, and I do take on board what people are saying. And his ADP price, that's very good.
And Quincy Enuma as well. He's another one to watch out for this year.
Well, another piece of advice that's worth mentioning because we're talking about these kind of players is I do generally, I'm sure Al's the same. I put together quite a few different lists actually, depending on what I'm doing. But I've got a list in here, which is one that's I think it's in this lot. If it's not, it's not. But I'll tell you where I got it from. Here it is. This is off ESPN's list, so that gives you all the players currently that they predict will be the number 1 starting, number 2 starters for each position. I think that's really valuable. I would use it, and you would look at things like this Meredith situation and move him onto that chart if he's not already on it. And these are the kind of things you'll make those late round decisions based on some of these sneaky value players who are sitting there.
He's just a solid player, like the Richard Matthews of this world that no one really likes, but
why
they do a solid job.
Why would I want to take a rookie wide receiver at a certain ADP point when I could get a Cameron Meredith who's probably going to have definite upside, 40 to 50 catches, and I can kind of work out what he might get.
This is Anthony Miller, of course.
Well, Miller's a difference maker. Same with DJ Moore. People have been favourites of both of these guys to do well year 1. Not saying they will, but
they've got the chance.
I do like Miller, and I think his ADP up until recently is climbing. And I'm not surprised. Do you know what made me laugh? Actually, this was brilliant. I noticed that some podcasters are catching up, and this is true. So if you look at Big Dogs, he's brilliant. We love him, Nick.
Yeah,
he's
Nick,
great.
Yeah.
You look at the counsellor. We're not such fans of yours. Sorry, counsellor. We're not a big fans of yours, but I do listen to your videos. But you're all catching up because all the things that you've both said, we've actually been saying that for 6 weeks. So you're now catching up. You're talking about the Royce Freemans. You're talking about the Anthony Millers. You're talking about these players. We've been telling you that 6 weeks ago, and I've noticed that the market is catching up, which is a great sign, actually, because that tells us that we're doing the right thing. We've done it again. We were on the ball earlier and got off the line quickest, which is key. And I think that's really important because if you've had dynasty drafts or any drafts, you are well ahead of the curve. because
Exactly,
people have
yeah.
drafted that way.
We put you in a good position. Anthony Miller already impressing in camp, so
Yeah, I love him to bits.
Taylor Gabriel's another one that got a bit of love.
Yeah, it definitely has. I suppose you could
He's
put
another.
him. You could put him in the same camp as Cameron Meredith. There is an opportunity with the ADP he's currently sat at for him to do better than expected, and you will have a question mark on some rookies or him. And if it's a small league, maybe you can take a shot at the upside guy. If it's a big league, there is some real value to going with a safe player at a certain point in the draft. Not early, but
I did see a bit of camp coverage, and Miller made a one-handed
Miller-
catch, and they were like, "Wow."
Miller is exciting to watch. If you get any chance to watch his tape, or any tape on him in college, please do. If you watch him when he's practicing, please do. I've seen things that I've never seen before. I've been a huge fan of his for quite a while. I'm saying he's potentially got Brown 2.0 written all over him, and that's how highly I regard him. He's got that capability. He can come in and do something that may surprise people. He reminds me a lot of Hopkins. Brown is a mixture. It's such an interesting player. God, he's got a chance. And that offense, if they do anything and do it right, he could start the year and do better.
Does the
than people
offense
think.
worry you?
Yeah, a little. It's not. A lot of people are anointing it as a great offense, but they haven't proved it yet. Let's just see how it plays out. I think the pieces are there. But let's see what they do. I think they've got every chance, and it's all in their hands to show everybody what they're all about, the Chicago Bears. Certainly, they've drafted well, and I'm excited to see what they do. It looks an interesting team. Quite young.
I guess they're doing the same sort of thing as the Rams. They've brought in they've changed a lot. They've changed the whole offense, really. All the wide receivers. They've got Allen Robinson.
What a difference a year makes. I mean, the Rams now are exciting for the first time in a long time. It took me most of last season to get excited about them because you want to hope that it keeps lasting, and then when you have a good season, you think, wow, this is
could go
brilliant.
close, couldn't they?
We're close, yeah. We should be top 4. We will make that. We should make the last 8. That's the minimum. We should make the last 4, and anything's possible then. That's how good the Rams should be this year. But they have got a tough schedule, and rightly so. And we'll see how this all plays out as the season nears. But I'm excited for the Rams. Everything's there, but an injury here or an injury there, and the whole thing, wheels can fall off. So you have to always temper all the excitement with a dose of reality. I mean, everything bodes well. I'm not put off by any of the Rams players for this year. Cooper Kupp looks great. He did very well last year.
Jared Goff worry you at all?
We've talked about him before and the issues that he has. He's more of a game manager, but in that offense, they know that and what they're going to be working on for this year. I'm convinced the coach knows what other coordinators are going to do to try and put him off his game plan. And you highlighted a brilliant stat where there is a certain area of the field where Goff struggled to throw the ball.
Yeah.
So I think they will know this.
Well, that's why Sammy Watkins never caught anything all year.
And they will know this. They will be working on that in the off season to try and find either a smoke and mirrors the NFL, like all great games. If you've got a weakness, you either shore it up or you find a way to make it look like you don't have it anymore, and then
you put your best players on that side.
You make it more difficult. Yeah. So
you move Robert Woods over the other side and put Brandon Cooks
It's
there.
probably tendencies that have come out through college. I mean, one of the problems in college is if they've lined up a particular receiver one side of the field, and your instinct as a quarterback, it's like muscle memory. If you're always turning to that side first, that's what you're going to do. I mean, I must be honest. What was my first read, irrespective of coverage? Mr. Khan, where were you on the field? That is always the one player you would look to first.
Well, you see a lot of QBs have their favourite receiver, don't you?
Yeah, you would.
I mean, Keenan Allen's Philip Rivers, as we said earlier.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, you would do, and that's instinct. You look at what they tell you. They'll tell you something, and if they tell you, "I've got this man beat," you better believe they've got the man beat, and you may change something at the line of scrimmage. But we'll see. I like the Rams. Very excited by it. And, we're going to see what happens with Chicago. It's a very interesting offense. And I've got all high hopes for Anthony Miller this year. I've certainly got shares of him already. So I'm not unexcited if we reach, redraft. Love to get one more piece of him. But in redraft, with the value that he's going to hold and possibly where he's going to go, I don't think I'll get much of a chance of that. But I'm okay with it because I did get him in a few leagues. So I'm okay.
Okay. News out today. Ron Rivera has come out and said... he wants McCaffrey to have 25 to 30 touches per game.
Very interesting news. You have to take the coach seriously. I don't think that you would say that to. I don't think it's smoke and mirrors. I think he genuinely believes that the running back's got the capability to have a sprinkling of catches, which is probably going to be 6 to 8 a game, which is very good in PPR, and then the rest of the work will be in the running game in some capacity or another. I think. Could I see McCaffrey getting 10 to 12 touches and 6 to 8 targets? I think that's possible. So does that mean he has great value in the second round as it stands? Yes. It does. Will he be picked in the second round in most drafts early? Yes, I believe he does. So I think his ADP is perfectly fair. There's a risk with McCaffrey because he's light, he's small. I don't think those players hold up to the heavy load of the work that he's actually proposing.
Well, I bet you the plan is always to get them out in space where they're
More
quick
effective.
and
they dominate the player around them because one cut and gone. And that's the difficulty.
It's pretty hard for anyone to live with them.
Well, the NFL they're brilliant players. They close down the space so well. I mean, if you imagine we take traditional football over here, soccer as the Americans call it. The difference between every single division is simply how much space you get and how much time. It's less and less and less. Same in the NFL as you go up.
How good your touch is, yeah.
You have to, and the great players always seem to have an extra second, an extra moment. It's like they processed everything miles ahead of you.
Yeah.
And I think the problem comes for McCaffrey simply because he's light framed. He's not going to be. I don't think he does well in running between tackles. So I don't see where these 25 to 30, where it is. I could see carries. Yes, I can see some carries for him.
Oh, you get some, yeah.
But I don't see that kind of workload for a number of obvious reasons. And it depends on game script.
Yeah.
25 to 30 is the kind of game script where you're winning. It's the kind of game script where you're closing the game down. And I don't think... Do you hand the ball off to a light-frame man when you're closing the game
When you got
out?
C.J. Anderson, who's like a bowling ball.
I don't think so. So I'm not quite buying that. I mean, if they were chasing the game, would his workload shoot up? Probably, yes, because you've got to get him out in space and you need your playmakers.
They got Super C.J. Anderson as well.
Well, CJ has value in that offense, definitely.
He always reminds me of a turtle or a tortoise, because when he rolls over, he can't get up. Have you ever seen him? He can't get up.
You are right. But
I mean, he's not bad, but he's actually standing up.
It's the first year with his ADP. I'm looking at him going, in standard league, CJ Anderson, yeah, it's all right. You know, he could get some touchdowns.
Yeah, because they goal line. I mean, who would you give the ball to?
A
big bowling ball or a light?
I'll give it to the bowling ball.
I mean, they might throw it to McCaffrey.
I want the ball into the end zone. I don't want it to be knocked back a yard. I want it in.
Yeah, I guess McCaffrey can run to the side and catch it, a bit like Kamara.
But you'll have a spy on him, and you'll have your quickest corner will be covering McCaffrey, and you'll be looking at.
But is he quick enough?
Well, yeah, I think corner and running back pretty close. The positions are pretty damn close, actually. Really, frame for frame, it's pretty even. It's speed for speed, so it should be an interesting matchup. But the difference is if they get their first move on you, then they're gone. You know, that's the difference. They're gone. They're out of here.
Right, Julio Jones.
Yep.
He's had 4 years with 1,400 yards.
Yep.
Was going to hold out of camp unless he got a new deal. He's now got a new deal straight away. It's like, well, that was easy, wasn't it? He's now turned up. He's reported.
Yeah. What did you think of the deal? Kind of a restructuring.
Yeah, I think it's commonplace in the NFL at the moment, isn't it? I think, when you own him, you're like, he's huge and they never throw him in the red zone. It's weird.
Well, I mean, this is a player, again, that's going to...
I mean, he's elite, isn't he?
It's going to polarise people. Look, fantasy-wise, will the guy get me 1,400 yards? Probably.
Well, he will. He's done it last 4 years.
Probably he'll do that again. How many touchdowns? Well, you hope he gets, his average, which is 5 or 6. But then you look at him and you think, you've got to pay a big premium price for a player that's probably going to get you 170 to 180 fantasy points. That's the ceiling. And if you're picking him in the first round, you're already off pace. It's okay, but it never excites me, and that's my problem with him. I do like him.
You kind of know what you're going to get.
I do like him.
He's very up and down, though, isn't he?
If he falls into the second round, that's really good value. But will he? Some small leagues, yeah.
He will. He will definitely.
Yeah,
he will.
Some small leagues he will. I want to talk about Gurley's contract momentarily.
Yeah.
I forgot about this because this is really important.
I've got it on the list.
Have you?
60 million extension till 2023.
Well, we'll come to it when it's on your list. Then that's good.
Well, so with Julio,
yeah.
Apparently, he only had 5 weeks where he was a wide receiver 1 last year. 5
That's right. Yeah.
Of the 16 weeks. That isn't good enough, is it?
It isn't, and I think
so he obviously has big weeks.
Yeah, that was the problem last year, and that was my concern with him. He had 1,400 yards. Can't take that away. But if you rightly say, if you look at the game scripts, look at the actual games that
very up and down.
There were some very big games, 5 of them, and the rest were. And the problem with that is, fantasy-wise, we all know what happens when you're banking on a certain.
You need more than 5 wins.
I prefer consistency over boom. I promise you that now. I'd rather have a player that gave me what I expected every week over a player that does it 1 week really well and overperforms, and then the next week's giving me 1.2. And a great illustration of this is, remember, New England, Jonas Gray. 200-yard performance 1 week. and you never saw him again the next. You don't want those kind of
He
players.
missed practice and he was
Yeah,
gone.
he's gone.
Never played with
I mean, you don't want those. That was 4 touchdowns, 201 yards, if I remember rightly. You don't want those players. You want them for that 1 week, great.
Yeah.
I guarantee you probably
taken
didn't
him
trade
that
him.
week.
I bet you didn't trade him away, which is a real shame. If you did, you're a genius. Well done. So, we'll see what happens.
Okay, Carson Wentz has avoided the PUP, but he's
Yeah,
only
it's good.
having limited reps at the moment. Is that,
Yeah, that's standard. I mean, they're protecting their asset for this year. You've got to look after
Does
the
it
player.
worry you at all?
No, I think...
I see where you have him on your rankings. I'm guessing it doesn't.
No, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. He's another elite quarterback. He will prove to be in that top echelon of quarterbacks this year because high-octane offense, all the pieces, showed the poise before he got injured, can run when necessary, does all the things you want from a fantasy perspective and some. Is he capable of 4,000 yards? Yes. Would he get rushing yards? Yes. Would he get a combination of touchdowns? Absolutely. That team, you spread the ball
Can he
around.
make Nelson Aguilar look a good player?
You
Yes.
spread the ball around and you make people look good. Yeah, absolutely. And Aguilar is very disrespected in the lists.
I know. I drafted him a lot last year. That's what I mean. You've got to be ahead of the curve.
You were right.
Everyone's
I
going, why is
drafted
he- I was getting abused.
I drafted him 2 ahead.
Yeah, that
Well,
was too early.
It was an interesting year, that one. I took some flyers that year. It didn't work out, but it certainly was the right... He's a good player. He's certainly got potential to do even better this year, I think. It's a good offense.
Yeah, well, you
sky's
think,
the limit.
You think a year cemented in the system will do him
Benefit
no
the
harm.
ball, very much so, yeah.
Okay. Right, so let's get on to Todd Gurley. 60 million extension.
It's a fabulous contract. If you look between
2020, the guaranteed was 35 million, was it? Or was
Well,
it more
if
than
you
that?
look at how it guarantees, actually, it's
more
more
than
than that. It actually guarantees out to be 45
45
million
million, yeah.
guaranteed. Now, why this is interesting is why the Rams did a good bit of business here, because I was looking at that when it first came out. I thought, what the hell are they doing? But actually, it was wise because Bell's contract hasn't been negotiated yet. So they realised, I think very cleverly, that they couldn't wait. They had to give him an offer that's busting, like really you can't turn it down, like this is way ahead of the curve before Bells comes out, because then this contract is going to look not so good. And the problem was for the Rams is that they have got to offer these contracts now because these pieces will, a good team, you lose pieces every year, and the Rams would have a danger of you're not under contract, the same situation Pittsburgh may face, you can't keep the player. And this deal damages Bell a lot. Because look what Bell will want now. Because that's why I think it's a great bit of business. So somebody...
Yeah, but in an open market, he'll get it, won't he?
Well, he will. And we've said before, we did believe he wouldn't be there, Bell, and I still maintain that. And I think this deal pretty much cements that possibility because he's going to want at least that. And the running back position is finally getting some credit for what it does to the teams for the first time in years.
I mean, Donald, he's a great player.
Yeah,
But every year he seems to be trying to renegotiate his contract, holding out a camp.
Well, the Rams are kind of on a shoestring of budget here. There's a bit of a nifty game going on. We'll see Donald's contract renegotiated. I think it will happen as we hit when you release your 53-man roster, and then they'll free up some cap space accordingly because there'll be the odd surprise. And then he'll get his contract deal negotiated. He'll have to.
Well, they got rid of the shot of Tavon Austin, so
Yeah.
that'll free up some money.
Delighted to see that somebody with an ounce of a common sense decided to get rid of the little guy, which is fair, So yeah, exciting. So Rams made a good bit of business. It tells you a lot about where the new the head coach's headspace is with the backroom staff. There's a lot of logic going on here. I do like that bit of business, and it really helps the Rams long term.
According to reports, Khalil Mack and Gruden have not spoken. I mean, he's their star, player on defense.
That's really worrying, isn't it? I mean, that's
Was he a sack attacking white and black or something? So.
I think you have to have open dialogue. I mean, you're a coach, for God's sake.
He's really old school, though, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I
don't like what he's been doing.
No,
really.
I don't. I mean, look, you've got to have open dialogue with your players. Now, even if they don't necessarily like you, they have to respect you. I mean, I think that's a very difficult concept for some people to understand. But that really, what I'm saying here is, look, they may not agree with your methods, but ultimately success turns every player over to your way of thinking. If you don't have success, they're going to turn around and tell you it's because of you.
Will the Raiders have success?
I think under Gruden, to start with, yes, I think they can because, for a few reasons, schedule, division, the Gruden factor early doors, yes, there will be some successes. Can he maintain it long term? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure.
Is he a dinosaur in today's ever-changing
I
NFL?
think the NFL has changed a lot because of the way that the game has moved to the run-pass option. I'm not going to keep over-stressing this. I don't think that's Gruden's strength, actually. He's not been around the game as it developed into that. And I'm not saying he can't learn it because, of course, he's a coach. Of course you can learn it. But you have to have not just learnt it, you have to actually have physically practiced it and put it into your game plan. And you've got to have followed it through. And I think you will see with the Eagles, as I keep saying, the Eagles are taking the RPO game plan and they have worked out that the way the league has to change is to go man-to-man. So they've built an offense around who do you cover. And the problem with that is you can't. So you now have this fantastic situation where everybody they've got on their offense, for different reasons, not all of them are perfect fits and not all of them would be starters in some teams, but they all do what they have to do in that offense to make it tick one-on-one. And they will explode again. They're a very difficult team to stop, and it's going to be exciting watching them again. So I'm looking forward to seeing how coordinators try and lock up man-to-man against the RPO plays that the Eagles are going to be putting in. So that's going to be really the development of the league is going to sit at that point as each week people take steers of what they're seeing off that team and then add the plans into their own playbooks.
Exactly. They sort of changed the way the NFL sort of people are going to look at the NFL now.
It's exciting.
They've created a new system.
They have.
Well, not a new system, but an effective system.
They've taken the original concept and then developed
improved it, yeah.
Which is great. And
okay.
It really opens the whole game up.
I mean, there's other news. I mean, Earl Thomas preparing to sit out for the season. It's sad, isn't it?
The Legion of Boom has become the Legion of One. I mean...
Legion of Doom.
You know, yeah. I mean, I bang this drum so many times now. I'm a little bit fed up with the Seattle Seahawks. Look, I mean, you know, you had your chance to win 2 Super Bowls, you blew it. I said after that you'll never get back with this team. That's a fact. That's never happened.
They've gone another direction.
It's going the opposite way, and you've lost what was ultimately the crux of the whole thing, was having this amazing defense that held everything together. You're basically the Eagles' offense will have to be high octane, chasing every game, which is good for Russell Wilson, good for Doug Baldwin, and good for anybody that plays at the running back position there. But the truth of the matter is that that's for one season and one season only, because they're an injury away from being absolutely destroyed. You know, an injury to Russell Wilson, and that team is trash, you know, for a long time. I mean, it's that bad.
But at least they got a really good... no, their O-line's the worst in the...
Well, yeah.
the worst in the whole league.
It's terrible.
Jason Garrett, not on the hot seat, which is what Jerry Jones come out and said. So basically said he's... I mean, who's saying he is in danger of being sacked? I mean, it's a weird thing to say just before the start of the season. It's almost like...
Well, the pressure, I guess, in Dallas is it's America's team, so I guess you're always under the microscope. The way that they built the stadium, every player's under the microscope. I guess Jason Garrett constantly, you know, last year would be below expectation. So I guess that he would have faced a lot of criticism.
Yeah, but whose fault is it?
It's everybody's in the organisation.
I mean, literally, the Joneses run everything. It's
everybody's fault. It's everybody's fault in the organisation. I mean, there is a great quote I remember very well, not to do with football, but relates incredibly well, that everybody in an organisation has to know the goal. Now, if the goal is to win the Super Bowl, then you have to not only believe it, you have to have a mantra that backs it up, and you've got to believe and chase that dream and vision. And everybody from the frigging cleaner up to the head coach and the owner has to know the mantra. They have to know exactly what they're chasing.
You have to be called Jones is mainly the main mantra.
Now, every team will say that they want to win the Super Bowl, but actually, does their mantra back that up? I mean, I look at the Dallas Cowboys and some of the things.
Have we got better this year?
No.
Oh.
You haven't. I mean, you'll say in the offseason, the head coach will put a thing out saying, we're going to win, our goal is to win the Super Bowl. Actually, your goals should be a lot less, because you're not, frankly,
we're not good enough to do that.
You're not in a position to do it. I think you've got some great pieces as a team. I do like Dak Prescott as a quarterback. I think he shows tremendous poise. I think his vision and his mistakes are pretty small most of the time. He's pretty good, but when they kind of set him up to fail, they were really putting him in bad spots, which really upset me as a quarterback. Thinking about him as a player, I was like, I'd be rattled as well. You know, the way that they're setting him up to get pushed down. I mean, it's awful. Ezekiel Elliott had a really tough time, no fault of his own, actually. I felt very sorry for him, and I think he's the hungry player of the team. He's the player that's going to go out and...
You wouldn't mind drafting him at all.
Great job I think he's going to do for Dallas next. I mean, the sky's the limit for the kid. I mean, what's his ceiling? It's unlimited. Is he capable of a 2,000-yard season? Could he do it as a player? Absolutely. All of those top four can.
Not when you got Tavon Austin eating into his
Well, yeah, obviously that might hold you back. But it is a great player. But it does worry you for Dallas's direction. And
we're 20-1 to win the Super Bowl, something like that, and that's going to be the worst price in sports history.
Terrible odds. It's far too generous. I mean, to be honest, if you're backing at 21, you've been mugged. You need a much better price.
Okay, one final bit of news just come out.
Yeah,
as we speak, Ravens remain Flacco's team.
Yeah, this is the end for Flacco. It really is. I mean, let's be honest.
The fact that you're coming out and saying that.
What about what they did during the last 2 weeks? They were running 2-quarterback offense.
Apparently, the crowd were really up on this.
Yeah.
So with 2 QBs in the thing, so they were excited.
They were running a 2 QB offense. The idea was, which is again revolutionary. It's correct to do it. Is when you've got a rookie, and eventually he's going to be the starter. At what point? Traditionally, people let them sit for a while until they mature into the role, which has been solid advice. But actually, sometimes it's better to give a player some exposure to certain situations in the game, and
they have actually come out and said he will get on the field, but maybe not as a.
And I agree with that.
Maybe not as a quarterback always.
I totally agree with that. That's exactly the right thing to do, and it's the college way of playing. Actually, that's more the college way, and it's the right way. And it's the NFL could take a lead from the college. So I do think he'll get on the field. Lamar Jackson. Is he exciting? You watch this space. He was on my number 2 rookie list for quarterbacks this year for a reason. I do like him. I think they shortcut to success whenever you have a mobile quarterback. This guy's a different mobile quarterback. This isn't a 600-yard quarterback running per season. This is a 1,000-yard quarterback. That's rare. Now, he may not throw as much as some of the others, but when you get the stats to go with the running, you don't need to. And I think for Baltimore, that makes the team exciting. That's why I'm a little bit more interested to see what happens in Baltimore than I have been before.
Do you think he's worth drafting this year?
No, I think the dynasty, yes, but for every other format, no. I think it'd be a late round throwaway pick on the off chance. But I think, would you have him as your second quarterback? Very unlikely, to be honest. That would be a huge risk, wouldn't it?
The only way you could do that is having a QB that you trust that has a late bye week.
Well, I guess if you had, say, a top tier quarterback like Aaron Rodgers,
Russell Wilson,
and you're thinking, I'll just take Lamar Jackson just because it's my second, and I think there'll be a bit of work for the bye week just for interest. I can't knock it, and you might even say to yourself, even if the worst happens, I probably can still find someone for 1 week, which is probably true.
I would draft him. Do you know why?
Yeah, go on.
In a deep league,
because the upside.
Well, yeah, because he is potentially, if you're drafting late, he is potentially a game changer.
He is, yeah.
The kind of points he could put up.
I can't knock your logic. It's just that I'm not sure for this year. I think there's still enough.
Oh, I'm not sure either. But
I think there's still enough for now for Flacco to hold the job. But I say this tentatively because we all know in the NFL it's a fickle beast. It's business. It's not personal. And if they start off poorly, the crowd will be baying for Lamar Jackson to come in. And I actually think that's the most interesting quarterback challenge of all of them coming in, because I think it's hard to argue when you're in Baltimore. You want a bit of excitement. I think they're overdue it.
I think Lamar Jackson was my QB1 on the rookie list.
Yeah,
like you say, not for throwing, but just because I think what he could potentially do is scary. He's scary.
He can do a lot that will change things. He's that kind of quarterback, and it's not the arm or any of that stuff. It's the athleticism that you rarely see. It's Michael Vick-like, and it's Michael Vick-like. It is there.
And Michael Vick, changed fantasy. What did he put up? 40 or 50 points 1 week?
He can change the game. He can change it. So Lamar Jackson will be very interesting. Should he get on the field and you've got him, it is worth the occasional risk on your fantasy week just to take a
Why not? It's an exciting player. Why not do it?
I think you've raised a great point, Al, and I'm certain that in certain formats he will certainly get picked. Certainly in the deep league, I couldn't imagine him not coming off the board, quite frankly, because there's that many picks.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, if you're still watching, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Sean, for your company.
No, thank you, Al.
For your time.
We're always excited. We're going to start running some competitions we were talking about offline very soon. Watching this channel, subscribe if you want to be part of that. We are going to talk about those in the next few weeks, aren't we, and what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But we'll have that before the season starts, because I think that's important, and we'll probably try to tailor it around our subscriber numbers, because the key for us is to keep growing. We need your support to do that. We've got to keep sharing the videos, so please do. Please comment, as Al says, and like them, and it's vitally important that we just keep spreading them around. I know we keep battering for that, but we are UK based. It's harder for us. We don't have a natural audience that's going to channel in. But we know that it is definitely growing, and that's all we can do. And we've got a goal. We want to try and reach 150 before the season finishes for us this year. And we're still about 25 to 26 away from that. But that's not bad. It's possible. I think we can do it.
Okay. And remember, most importantly, football's nearly here. So
it is. Yeah.
It's coming soon. Thank you again.
Thanks for watching.